Welcome again. This is an investigative video on life and the legacy of a music legend, Maurice White. He was an iconic musician and producer, best known as the founder and leader of the legendary R&B and funk band Earth, Wind & Fire. His music and unique style transformed the landscape of contemporary music, blending elements of jazz, funk, soul, and pop into a genre-defying sound that captivated audiences around the world. Despite his immense success, Maurice White's life was not without its share of sadness and tragedy, which ultimately led to his untimely death in 2016. Like, subscribe, and comment for such amazing videos. Born on December 19, 1941, in Memphis, Tennessee, Maurice White was the youngest of 9 children. His family was steeped in the gospel music tradition, and his mother was a singer and choir director at their local church. Maurice grew up singing in the church choir and developed a love for music that would stay with him for the rest of his life. In the early 1960s, Maurice moved to Chicago to pursue a career in music. He started as a session drummer, playing on records for Chess Records, including records by Etta James, Fontella Bass, and Billy Stewart. During this time, he also worked as a sideman for jazz musicians such as Ramsey Lewis and his band The Chessmen. In the late 1960s, Maurice formed a band called the Salty Peppers with Don Whitehead and Wade Flemons. They signed a record deal with Capitol Records and released their first single, La La Time, in 1969. The single failed to chart, and the group disbanded soon after. Undeterred, Maurice continued to work as a session musician and producer. He eventually teamed up with keyboardist Larry Dunn and singer Philip Bailey to form a new band, which they named Earth, Wind & Fire. The band's first album, Earth, Wind & Fire, was released in 1971 and featured a mix of jazz, funk, and soul. Earth, Wind & Fire's second album, The Need of Love, was released in 1972 and included the hit single, I Think About Lovin' You. The band's third album, Head to the Sky, was released in 1973 and included the hit single Evil. The album also marked the first appearance of the band's distinctive horn section, which became a hallmark of their sound. Earth, Wind & Fire's fourth album, Open Our Eyes, was released in 1974 and included the hit single, Mighty Mighty. The album was a critical and commercial success, and it helped establish the band as one of the most popular and innovative acts of the 1970s. Over the next few years, Earth, Wind & Fire continued to release hit albums and singles, including That's the Way of the World, which featured the hit singles Shining Star and That's the Way of the World. The album was a massive success, selling over 5 million copies in the US alone. During this time, Maurice White became known for his visionary approach to music and his unique style, which blended elements of funk, soul, and jazz with a theatrical flair. He also became known for his spirituality, incorporating elements of Eastern philosophy and spirituality into his music and personal life. In the late 1970s, Earth, Wind & Fire's popularity began to wane as disco and punk rock became more popular. However, the band continued to release albums and tour, and Maurice White continued to innovate and experiment with new sounds and styles. In the 1980s, Earth, Wind & Fire experienced a resurgence in popularity, thanks in part to collaborations with other musicians, including Phil Collins and Denise Williams. The band also released a number of hit singles, including Let's Groove and September, which became instant classics. Earth, Wind & Fire won 6 Grammy Awards and were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2000. In addition to his work with Earth, Wind & Fire, Maurice was also a sought-after producer and collaborator. He worked with numerous artists throughout his career, including Denise Williams, Barbra Streisand, and Neil Diamond. He also founded his own record label, Kalimba Records, which released albums by artists such as Diane. Despite his success, Maurice was not immune to personal struggles. He was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease in the late 1980s, which forced him to retire from touring with Earth, Wind & Fire in 1994. Parkinson's is a degenerative disorder that affects the nervous system and can cause tremors, stiffness, and difficulty with movement. Maurice continued to work on music despite his health challenges and remained active in the music industry. Sadly, Maurice passed away on February 4, 2016, at the age of 74. His death was a shock to fans and colleagues alike, as he had kept his illness private and had continued to work on music up until his death. Maurice's brother and fellow Earth, Wind & Fire member, Verdine White, announced the news in a statement, saying, "My brother, hero, and best friend Maurice White passed away peacefully last night in his sleep." While the world has lost another great musician and legend, our family asks that our privacy is respected as we start what will be a very difficult and life-changing transition in our lives. Thank you for your prayers and well wishes. The music industry mourned the loss of Maurice, with countless tributes pouring in from artists and fans around the world. Maurice's legacy as a musician and visionary lives on through his music and the countless artists he influenced. He was a trailblazer who broke down musical barriers and brought people together through his art. His dedication to his craft and his commitment to creating music that inspired and uplifted people will be remembered for generations to come. See you on the next one.